welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host, Colette, and in this podcast, I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breathwork, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend you listen to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now, here's the show. Hey, before we start the show, did you know that I'm hosting an Ayurveda and yoga retreat right here on the French Riviera this October, the 11th to the 13th, a 3-day weekend of connection, education, and relaxation. We're going to enjoy lots of talks on Ayurveda, yoga classes and Ayurvedic workshops, and we're going to hang out in this lovely medieval village which is just outside Nice, and Nice has the international airport, so it's really easy to access. If you're interested, please check out my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com/retreat. So check it out. I would love to have you here and connect with you in person. It would be fantastic. So I hope you can join us. Okay, now let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda. Today, I'm very happy to introduce you to Vaidya Meenakshi Gupta, who is an Ayurveda Vaidya, founder and director of Ayurroots Wellness Center in Dallas-Fort Worth area and the Texas Institute of Ayurveda in Plano, Texas. She is a trainer and teacher of international repute and has pursued her MD in Ayurveda from India. She has been practicing Ayurveda for the last 20 years, and she knows firsthand what a difference it can make on one's wellness by simply understanding an individual's unique body type and making small, simple changes to one's diet and lifestyle. Vaidya Meenakshi has done an intense 3 years of clinical research on ADHD, learning disabilities in children. The research experience includes literacy research as well as clinical trials with Ayurvedic herbs. She has authored several papers and writes regular columns in several magazines, along with various radio talks and newspaper articles. She is a member of the Fellowship Board of the Association of Ayurvedic Professionals of North America and of NAMA. She is a board member of the Research Method Committee for the Council for Ayurveda Research. And she is also senior editor of Journal of Ayurveda and Holistic Medicine and ex-co-editor of Ayurveda Mantra magazine. Welcome to the show, Vaidya Meenakshi. How are you today?
Thank you, Colleen. It's nice to chit-chat with you. I'm doing really well. How about you? How's the summer treated you?
It's good. We're having a little bit of a heat wave here in France, so I'm managing my pitta very well. and you were just telling me you just got back from visiting your family in India.
Yes,
Yeah,
I came back 4 days back, and it was hot there also. In Texas also, we have the heat wave going on.
Okay, so we're all managing this pitta heat. So
Yes.
we met back at the NAMA conference in California in April, and I interviewed you then for the NAMA conference episode on the practicum that you hosted with Dr. J on herbal preparations for healing the mind. And we had a lovely chat then all about the Ayurvedic herbs that are really good for mental health. And you mentioned in that chat about your research on ADHD, and I was really interested in talking to you further about this research. And so thank you for coming back on the show and giving us the time, because I think this is information that is really interesting and can really help a lot of people out there. So I guess let's start today by explaining what is ADHD, please.
Thank you, Khalid, for having me on this episode.
Oh, my pleasure.
When we talk about ADHD, if you see in Western language, it is a behavioral disorder of children. And there are certain characters which we see in most of the kids. It's like inattention, increased distractibility, difficulty in sustaining attention, poor impulsive control, and also decreased self-inhibition capacity. So in this, you will see that mostly the ADHD is like three various types clinically, if we see that. One involves hyperactivity impulsive behavior, where the behavior is like marked by hyperactivity, impulsivity, but the inattentiveness is not present. So means the kid will be hyperactive, and also they will make the decision quickly, but they will pay attention. And the second comes inattentive type, where you will see that there is no hyperactivity. Kid can sit still, but when you talk to them, they cannot pay attention to that. And then comes the combination form, where you will see inattentiveness also, hyperactivity also, and impulsive behavior also. And that is the one which is more common. And let me tell you one more thing, that ADHD is more prevalent in boys as compared to the girls. And when you talk about the ratios, it's like 2 to 4 times higher in boys as compared to the girls. And also you will notice that there is a slow reaction time. And that means there is a slower attention span. So when we talk about the attention span in that, the faster the information goes into the brain. And how we process the information, how quicker we process the information, and then we respond. That is the norm for everybody. But that depends upon how fast the information can be processed. Let me give you an analogy of like you are filling the bottle with the water. How fast you can fill the bottle depends upon how fast the water comes out of the tap, and also how wide the neck of the bottle is, right? Even if you can turn the tap on the fullest, then also the bottle needs to be wide to get all the water into that quicker. But that's how our brain is. A lot of sensory information pours into the brain, but any sensory input that cannot be caught up with the brain will be discarded rather than the process. So what happens in ADHD, when a child with ADHD does not hear your instruction, it may be that the sound was, they heard the sound, but the instructions were discarded because the brain tells that there is no need to pay attention, or there is no time to process that information. So that's how the ADHD happened. That's why most of the kids, if you see, they are inattentive. You keep on talking to them and they will keep on doing their own work without paying attention to your instructions. It's hard for them to process the information.
So interesting. So is it a case of like sensory overload?
Yes, we can say that this is a sensory overload, though it is not exactly the sensory overload. But yeah, since the brain cannot handle that information, that leads to sensory overload.
Very interesting. So thank you for that explanation. And I'd love for you now to tell us about your clinical research. I mean, you did 3 years of this really intensive research, and I'd love for you to share this information with us.
Yeah, my part of the research when I was doing my MD in National Institute of Ayurveda, Jaipur from India, that time I picked the topic for the enuresis, which is like a bedwetting in children.
Okay.
And at that time, I picked the herbs which are nootropic herbs, neurotonic herbs. And part of that was lead to ADHD as well as learning disabilities in children. So during that only, I started doing the research regarding the ADHD, and later on, I added a little bit of few research articles, literary research articles.
Can I ask you a question there? So you were doing the research on bedwetting in children, and so how did that lead to ADHD? Was there a connection?
Yeah, because bedwetting is also related to either, it was like for the urinary control, lack of urinary bladder control, and also related to emotional behavioral aspect. So when it comes to emotional aspect, then we look into the other factors, and we notice that a lot of kids with ADHD, sometimes they also have, and irrespective of having ADHD or not, the kids have some emotional overload or sensory overload when they have the bedwetting. And that time, doing the research on the nootropic herbs, I have done the research with that, along with that, ADHD and learning disabilities as well.
Oh, very interesting. And what are nootropic herbs?
The nootropic herbs are all the neurotonic herbs, and we call it as a rasayana or medhya rasayana.
Okay.
And the most common we use ashwagandha, brahmi, valerian, which is tagar, manduk parni, even yashti madhu, which is licorice. So all these herbs give really good results in the mental health. Wonderful. I would say that.
So, and just to explain to people, rasayana is for rejuvenation.
Yes.
Correct. Okay, great. Okay, so thank you for answering my questions, and I'll let you continue on about your research because I'm fascinated with this.
So, when you talk about ADHD, especially with respect to, we talked about the Western definition of ADHD and how we see the things in ADHD. But when we talk about the ADHD at the level of Ayurveda, we see the mental ability. And we all know that in Ayurveda, which is a science of knowledge, there are three aspects of mental ability. And that is like Dhi, Dhriti, Samriti. Dhi means the power of learning, how you learn. Dhriti, the power of retention. Whatever you have learned, how you retain that information. And then comes the Smriti, which is the ability to recall, like your memory. And when these three mental functions are not in the balanced state, either individually, it can be like maybe one person has the ability to learn, but retaining power is not there. Or everything is in the imbalanced state, the power of learning, the power of retaining, or the memory part. Then their coordination with one another is also not good. And then the learning problems can crop up. So that is very common with the ADHD kids, that the learning problems are always there. And in Ayurveda, we say that it is mostly because of the diet, sometimes the emotional aspect also. And the diet plays very important role. So when we were doing the research on this, then I picked up the herbs. My research was on Pekopa, Ashwagandha, with respect to ADHD and learning disabilities, and also the Shirodhara. Shirodhara is actually Ayurvedic therapy, where you pour the warm liquid on the forehead at certain point, and at certain height also in continuous oscillating movement. And that actually works very well on the pineal gland, and also it helps in activating the pituitary also. So this is the basic process which we do. And for the kids, we normally choose the mode of liquid is always milk and decoction of herbs. And again, it is the same herbs, Pekopa, Brahmi, and Ashwagandha, which I picked up. So those were the two herbs primarily, along with the other herbs like licorice, as I said, and a little bit of valerian also. And the results were really, really promising.
Well, that's very interesting. So you're doing the Shirodhara normally in therapeutic areas it would be done with oil. So you're doing with the milk and the decoction of herbs, of these herbs.
Yes,
So interesting.
and yes. It is called as, instead of Shirodhara, we call as Sheerdhara. Sheer means cow milk.
Okay.
So with the fixed oscillatory movements and approximately height is like 3.1 inches. And that treatment was done for 45 minutes a day for 2 to 3 weeks.
Wonderful. So can we break down that a little, please, as to why you use the milk? Of course, you use the herbs because they are known for being good for mental rejuvenation. But the milk, why do you use that as a base? And how is the Shirodhara affecting the pituitary and pineal glands?
See, the Shirodhara is when you do with the milk and decoction of herbs, the milk is cooling in nature. And here we are talking about the Sadhak Pitta, which governs the emotional aspect. And the effect of that on the function of the heart. Here, heart means not only anatomical heart, the heart means the mind also.
Okay.
So, since it is, we are treating the Vata, Pitta involved, the Sabdosha involved in memory, if we see that there are 3 subdoshas as per Ayurveda, which is Pran, Vata, which actually governs the brain, sensory perception, and the mind also. Then, as I said, the Sadhaka Pitta, which is another form of Pitta in the body, that governs our emotional aspect, and the heart, which is mind. And then the Kapha part, which governs the sensory organs and as well as the spinal fluid. So when we are talking about the kids, the oil can be sometimes too heating in the body. So that's why the mode of vehicle or the mode of liquid was cow milk along with the decoction of the herbs.
Great. And so I have a couple questions here. Now that we're talking about the doshas, I would love to address that as to, and I'm sure you're going to get to that, as to what are the aggravated doshas in regards to ADHD. And also, I'd love to talk a little bit more about how the role of the pineal gland and the pituitary with ADHD and why you particularly focus on those.
Yeah, because see, it is in Ayurveda we say that hyperactivity comes with the Vata dosha imbalance, and also when the mind cannot process the information because of the sensory overload, or because the information is too much to process for the brain, then also Vata can get into imbalanced state. So primarily ADHD is because of Vata, but there are other subdoshas involved as well.
Sure.
So Vata, when we talk about the Vata, the main the character of Vata is it's always mobile. So mind is always racing in that. With respect to ADHD, that's why the inattentiveness and hyperactivity comes. So that's the reason that we pick up the herbs also, which are kind of like a Vata balanced herbs. Now, your next question was that how it affect the pineal gland and the pituitary.
Voila, yes.
So when we do the Shirodhara in oscillatory movement at certain distance, at that time, the point where the continuous flow is, that is actually is the site for the pineal gland. And that pineal gland makes an axis with the pituitary. So indirectly, it affects the pituitary, but very simple technique, but very powerful. I remember reading the research. There was one Japanese article. They have done the clinical research on Shirodhara with respect to activation of the pituitary. So in that research, they did that Shirodhara and how it activates the pituitary. They actually did the levels of the pituitary before that and afterwards. And the results were really, really promising. The pituitary is the one which controls the various aspects of the body. You see the growth hormone as well as how we process the information and metabolism, excretion. Actually, thymus is the hypothalamus is the master gland, and the pituitary is controlled by hypothalamus, but pituitary is the one which controls other aspects of the body. So the importance of pituitary is also there. So when we talk about mental health, then also the pituitary is the one where we want to keep it in the balanced state. And also, if you know that this is the marma point also in Ayurveda.
Right.
So in that way also, we treat that also with the help of Shirodhara.
Wonderful. Can you explain to people just a little bit, as you mentioned, marma points, just a little bit about what that is?
So the marma points are like a vital points or the energy points in the body. And in Ayurveda, we say that there are 108 marma points. And every marma point is having a different significance. So marma in simple language are called dot or secret dot, like a door or pathway. And activating a marma point opens into the inner pharmacy of the body.
Wonderful. Thank you for that explanation. Great. So yes, I would love for you to continue on and tell me more about your research.
The research was basically on the Ayurvedic herbs, Brahmi, as well as Ashwagandha and Tagar. And when we did the research with respect to Shirodhara, as well as the herbs, the group which we took, the specific age range was 6 to 16 years. And male and female, but predominance of the male was there. It was just the male kids were more as compared to the females were.
Right.
And then we did, one group was based on only herbs. The second was a placebo. And the third was herbs plus the Shirodhara.
Oh, interesting.
And that was a group where we see that significant changes in the scores and changes in total reaction time also. Wow. So that was a group where we see that the combination therapy in the herbal mode as well as the Shirodhara plays an important role.
Very interesting. So, and the herbs that group were taking them orally?
Yes,
okay.
Orally. Okay. It was orally, and primarily the main herb was Bacopa in that. But rest was also in that, like one part of Bacopa and rest was like half part and 1/4 part.
Okay. So it was the combination of taking the herbs orally and then with the Shirodhara that produced the best results.
Yes.
Okay. So can you tell us, when you have a child coming in to your clinic, what is your general protocol?
The general protocol is, first of all, talk to the parents and watch the kid, because those kids, majority of the kids, it's very hard for them to sit still and listen to the conversation. So that determines how much hyperactivity is going on. And then based upon that, I make the diet plan also, because there are certain food which are lack in intelligence. We say that lack in prana.
Yes.
And that disturbs the intellectual and mind. And actually that disturbs the intellectual rhythm between the learning process, the retaining process, and the memory, Dheetrite Smriti. So that we prepare the diet chart and also talk to the parents, and then a little bit of breathing exercises. For example, the pranayam has very calming effect on the mind.
Yes.
And then the sheetkari, which is a cooling bread, shitali, that also makes them calm down. So those things I try to teach the kid also, but if not, then to the parents definitely, so that they can improvise that when the kid at home. in a relaxed environment.
Exactly. It is a lot of education for the parents, right?
Yes, yes. And the more emphasis on the diet, because if we see the modern research also, there are chemical food preservatives, so many chemical food preservatives, even like bakery items, the cake rising agents, calcium silicate, we say that, other coloring, flavoring, emulsifiers, everything is like disrupt the intellectual rhythm between the mind and the brain. So more emphasis on the sattvic food.
Yes.
If there is no dietary restriction or the allergies, then definitely including the ghee, which is clarified butter, can be really, really helpful. So we emphasize more on the food, and then we emphasize more on the sleep, because sleep is also very important. Not getting enough sleep, that also brings the hyperactivity.
Of course.
So there has to be set routine, going to bed early, waking up early, and experiencing the nature whenever the schedule permits for the parents and the kids.
Okay, you're spending time out in nature.
Yes.
Yeah, very calming for the body. Very good. So, very interesting about the diet, and I'd like to discuss that a little bit more. And before that, I'd like to ask you a question about, do you know of any research? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but is there any research between the correlation between the rise in processed food and the rise in ADHD?
There are several research going on and has been done in the past where there is a direct correlation between the preservatives and the processed food, and the coloring, flavoring will give rise to ADHD. And also the diet, which is very rich in sugar also, can make a person hyperactive.
Okay. And is that a result of inflammation? Or is it just literally from the sugar rush creating that hyperactivity?
I would say the both, the sugar rush also. And since it disrupts the processing information where the power of learning, retention, and memory cannot coordinate with each other because of overload with the sensory information as well as the sugar rush. So that leads to that.
Very interesting. And so I'd love now to discuss a little bit more about the diet. So we know now, and thank you for that information, that of course processed foods, the colorings, the flavorings, the really sugary diet has a dire effect on mental health, and really it creates more problems for ADHD. And so what are some diet protocols that you can share with us today? And of course we understand that every person is unique and it has to be a tailored approach for every person in Ayurveda. However, if you could give us some general dietary guidelines, that would be wonderful.
When we talk about the diet in Ayurveda, we always emphasize on fresh seasonal diet. That is the number one key factor here. I always try to educate on the diet part. You change your wardrobe every time, right? When the season changes. Why not change your diet also according to season?
Exactly.
Having said that, means eat fresh and pure food. Stay away from food with the chemicals, pesticides, or additives. The more the purer food you eat, the more intelligence from the nature one can absorb. And then balanced nutrition is also very, very essential. So diet rich in healthy protein, depending upon the lifestyle, the lentils. Lentils are really, really good. Plenty of fruits, vegetables, seasonal vegetables. That is also good for enhancing mental potential. We should count on the fat also. Here, the fat plays an essential role in the physiology and psychology. And when we talk about the healthy fat, there is a lot of research has been done where one can improve the brain function with Ayurveda and get a lot of good benefit out of the ghee also. So the importance of ghee also comes here. So incorporating healthy fat we say that healthy brain. So healthy fat comes in the form of ghee or the nuts.
Okay.
The importance of essential fatty acids for normal brain function is very, very important. And that stabilizes the mood. In these kids with the ADHD or with any aspect of the mental health, the mood fluctuation is always there. And that there comes the importance of ghee, because it has essential fatty acid which stabilize the mood. And as per Ayurveda, ghee not only does improve memory, strengthen the brain and the nervous system, it also improves the digestion and promote the longevity also. And we all know that the brain-gut connection. So if you see the ghee part, when it improves the digestion by acting in the gut, and it also improves the brain function. So in both ways, it is really, really good combination.
Absolutely. And would you say the ghee also, because it's the good fat and the brain is mostly made up of fat,
yes,
it also calms the nervous system as well?
Yes. So the ghee we use in a various mode, like internal application, also internal intake also, externally also. There are certain various ghees which you can use. And then ghee we use for nasyam also. Of course, you can use plain ghee or the medicated ghee. For the medicated here means the herbal ghees like a Brahmi Ghritam, processed with the Brahmi. That is also very good for the nasyam as well as for the internal intake for the mind power.
Great. And nasyam being with the nasal application?
Yes.
Okay.
Nasal application of the warm ghee, maybe one or two drops is enough for the kids.
Okay.
Initially, you can just apply at the external nostril and slowly build a practice of doing one drop inside the nostril.
Exactly. And is that going on the fact that these nasal channels into the body are closer to the brain?
In Ayurveda, we say that nasal cavity is the gateway to the brain.
Okay.
Nasyam Shirodwaram, that means that it is the gateway to the brain. So when you want the nervous system to act correctly and quickly, then the nasyam is the one mode where we can do the mode of the function of the herbs increases because of the mucous membrane absorption capacity.
Wonderful. And so that's a very simple thing that people could do. And of course, if you have a child that has ADHD or you think some mental disturbances, that of course it's always wise to seek out an Ayurvedic expert. But this is something very simple that parents could do. So you're saying just liquefy the ghee, or it could be, ghee with the herb Brahmi in it, and just take a droplet and put it in the nostrils. Is there a particular time of day? Would you do that at nighttime when they're laying down, or is there a particular time of day which is best?
Morning times are always good, but if it doesn't work, then the evenings, it can be done in the evening also. But just make sure that if you are using the dropper, it needs to be really sterilized because you are putting in the internal cavity.
Exactly. Yes, very good point. Yeah. I did a whole podcast episode on ghee and how amazing it is, and it has so many uses in the body and so many benefits. And here we are with another one. And that's the wonderful thing about Ayurveda. It's very simple techniques, very accessible.
Yes.
Yeah, which is so wonderful. Dr. Meenakshi, do you have a case study that you could share with us today?
Yeah, definitely. I have a couple of studies which I will share. One of the case study was with a 10-year-old boy here in Texas only. And when the mother got the child into the practice, that boy it was hard for him to sit for even 5 minutes. And doing the Shirodhara was really, really challenging.
Right, lay there.
But but after 3 or 4 attempts of unsuccessful sessions, by the time it was like 5th or 6th session, he was able to stay there for complete 1 hour. And we use the herbs also, Brahmi and Ashwagandha primarily, for internal intake once a day only.
Okay.
The dosage was also very minimum. And after 3 months, the scores were improved. There was no complaint from the school. Parents were happy.
Oh.
And we did the treatment for 7 to 8 months just to make sure. And afterwards, it was completely, I won't say the cure, but the things were favorable for the ADHD.
That's fantastic.
And then after a couple of years, they got me their little one also. The little kid was also his brother, younger brother.
Okay.
And his ADHD was totally a combination of Vata and Pitta, I would say. Very aggressive young boy. When we started, he was 5-year-old only. And totally hyperactive. And that was the kid, when you try to talk to him, he will say things which you can't imagine. Very angry young man. I still remember.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of complaints from the school. They keep on changing the desk. They kept on changing their schools also because of that issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. But after treating him with the herbs and the Shirodhara, as well as to calm the mind, we did the Abhyanga, which is a warm oil massage. And I educate parents the importance of massage, where the mom did for him on daily basis before the bedtime to make him calm.
Fantastic.
And everything combined together, and we can say proudly that after 6 months, the teacher was like, is it the same boy or it's a new one?
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic.
And they followed the treatment protocol, therapy protocol for 1 year. And those two brothers, I always admire. They come to clinic sometimes for the follow-ups. But things are very much under control. Parents are happy, teachers are happy. The scores are really good. The test scores for them.
Yeah.
Those were the 2 cases which definitely I would like to mention.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. So in those cases, there were 2 brothers. And
yes.
What do you think was the causative factor there? Is it just that the Vata is aggravated from a very young age? Was it lifestyle? Was it diet? Was it emotional factors?
I think everything played an important role. Both parents were busy in the business. The diet part was also a little bit lacking. The mother was making sure the kids get the nutrient food, but then also there were certain things. For example, they were too much used to indulge in cookies and the candies.
Yeah.
Which we all know that can be a really great trigger for the ADHD.
Yes.
And the environmental factor was also stressful, because when the kids are little, they demand more time from the parents. And when the parents are also juggling between the work and other things, household things, sometimes it gets chaos.
Yeah.
So that stress from the parents also sometimes kids pick up, and sometimes because of the demanding nature of attention, that also can be there. So it was a mixed factor, I would say. The diet, stress factors, everything played an important role. Once we got the environmental factor all controlled, I educate parents on the role of pranayama, that the kids follow us. So if you will start doing 5 minutes of pranayama by just sitting on the floor, crisscross your legs and making the environmental a little bit of calming down, and then the kid will follow that. And that happened.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And like we were saying earlier, it really is about education of the parents.
Yes.
And educating them on what's best for their children. And so they continue to come for follow-ups, which is great. And it's great that they did the treatment for a sustained period of time. You said several months to a year. Is that correct?
Yes, for the little one, they followed complete 1 year mark.
Fantastic.
And after that, I was like, he does not need the therapy now.
Yeah.
So the herbs also we stopped.
Okay.
Just consistency with the diet part as well as the breathing technique.
Right.
But after every 3 months, they come and have the session now.
Fantastic.
For the follow-up.
Yeah. So then I guess there's a lot of maintenance going forward. Now you've educated the parents on the best lifestyle, the best diet, the best mindfulness practices with pranayama. So there has to be a lot of, I guess, dinacharya brought in and daily self-care practices to make sure that their vata doesn't become aggravated, or in the little one's case here, the pitta.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's why we emphasize more on the daily regimen, dinacharya, so that everybody can follow and keep the doshas in the balanced state.
Right.
And I would also like to say the parents also goes into so much stress with the ADHD kids.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. It's nobody's fault.
Exactly.
Things can happen, right? So, but they also need to calm their mind by practicing daily routine and pranayama. Simple techniques they can also follow to keep themselves healthy. That's how they will be able to help the kids also.
Absolutely. And that was actually going to be my next question. Did the parents then have an interest in finding out about their own constitution, Ayurvedic constitution, and did they in fact learn a lot, I'm sure, in the process?
Yeah, they learn a lot, and then sometimes majority of the times then they end up coming for the consultation for their own well-being, to know more about Ayurveda, how they can incorporate Ayurveda to make a balanced lifestyle and balanced, healthy mind for their whole family.
Exactly. Yeah, because it has to be a real shift. And like you said, the children are like sponges. They're just following you, the parent as a role model, and they will do whatever the parent does. So it's
definitely,
it's
important. They follow the parents.
Yeah, it's important to be a great role model. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's a wonderful point that you made. It's nobody's fault, and it is a very stressful situation, and it's a lot to handle if your child has ADHD. And therefore, if someone out there is listening, what advice would you give them today if they think that their child may have some ADHD symptoms? What advice would you give them?
I would always recommend keeping that track on the diet. Do not emphasize on how hyperactive your kid is. It's not their fault. But how we can make things more calmer in the given environment for the kid who is hyperactive. And also how we can keep our health and mental well-being in those stressful situations. As you said, that the kids are like sponges, they follow, but also they pick up the things from the parents also. As a ADHD kid's parent, it is very hard not to stress about the situations, the social pressure, and then the complaints from the school. Everything can bring a lot of stress for the parents. So that stress sometimes kids can also pick up from the parents.
Of course. How
we can keep ourselves stress-free by practicing pranayama, take a little bit time out, only me time, where you don't feel guilty about that. Go outdoor walking 10 minutes maybe. If your schedule allows, early morning, experience the sun, cultivate more positive energy in you, and then come back and then talk to the kids in a calmer voice without getting stressed out about their condition. And then we can happily create a happy environment in the given circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the breath work in all my interviews and my talks on this podcast, it comes up again and again and again. And it's one of the simplest tools, free, it's easy to do. So incorporating breath work, if you have a child who tends to have a little bit of hyperactivity or be a little unsettled and maybe vata aggravated, even something as simple when you lay them down to bed at night, have them do some deep belly breathing. Imagine that they're blowing up a balloon in their belly, and then have them inhaling and exhaling through their nose. And something as simple as that, incorporating that into their routine, really helps calm the nervous system right before sleep.
Yeah, and there is, I would like to add, Colleen, one here, that there is one app also. It is Breathe Easy.
Okay.
That is like you feed the information and it will work with you. It's free of cost for everybody. They can download on their smartphone. And it is like, okay, you inhale, hold, exhale. And kids might enjoy these activity with that app also, just like a play.
Yeah, exactly. Great. So that's called Breathe Easy. I actually never heard of that one. So thank you for letting me know about that. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Recently, one of my clients only told, and I was teaching her the breathing exercise. And then she was like, wait, let me find the easier way. And then she came back and told, this is the app. And I found it really interesting, especially for the kids. It can be really good game to play.
Exactly. That's it. And you just want it to be a game, and they're enjoyable, and that they, that they enjoy doing on a daily or nightly basis. That would be fantastic. So in summary, can we say that ADHD it's really an imbalance of the Vata dosha? There may be some imbalance of Pitta as well, if it's particularly aggressive?
Yes, it is primarily a Vata predominant dosha involved in that. But yes, sometimes we see that the Pitta is also involved depending upon the behavioral aspect.
Right. And can it also be a genetic issue?
It can be a genetic issue also, because there are a lot of study has been done on that aspect.
Okay.
That if one of the parent has, or there is a family history, there are chances of getting ADHD is there. And in my day-to-day practice also, I see the kids who are having the ADHD, sometimes one or the other family member had that issue in the past, though not to that significant amount, but yes. So in that way, there can be a genetic link, and there are certain cases where there is no genetic link also.
Oh, interesting. And I guess, speaking on Ayurvedic terms, if the parents, if one or both of the parents are Vata aggravated at the time of conception, and if at the time of the conception the child's birth constitution is determined and the child is born into a family that maybe there's some Vata aggravation going on, perhaps that could...
Yeah, if the not only the dosha involved, if the diet is, for example, if the mother diet is predominantly Vata at that time, aggravating, or she was stressful, that her mind was fearful or stressful for some reason, that also can contribute towards aggravating of Vata or Pitta.
Yeah.
And sometimes the environment here means the infant in the womb, because of certain conditions, that can also aggravate Vata.
Yeah.
So you are right in saying that if the parents are having Vata dosha, or there is a diet primarily dominant in Vata aggravating qualities, that all these things can lead to a child having a Vata dosha prominent or a Vata imbalanced. Vata is in the imbalanced state.
Right, right. So just for those people out there, it's, it's so important, as we talk about, preconception on some podcast episodes, and really making sure in Ayurveda we recommend doing, cleansing the body even in preconception stage, so that if you're thinking about having a family, so that you go into the process of conception feeling balanced both physically and mentally.
Definitely, that I would emphasize again and again.
Yeah.
See, when you even plant any plant in the soil, you prepare the soil, right?
Yes.
And here we are talking about the next generation.
Yes.
So if you want to bring the kid in the life, then we need to prepare our body here, not only the female, but the male aspect also.
Yes.
So Ayurveda does recommend going for a panchakarma before you decide to have a baby, because then the internal environment, external environment, everything will be pure, and there will be healthy conception.
Exactly. And not only the fact that everything is pure and be a healthy conception, but also preparing the parent for this process to come, because I think a lot of times life is so busy now, there's no preparation stage, and it's so important to prepare yourself physically and mentally for this life that's about to be born.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Hopefully we can get that that's just part of the process of having a baby, that there's all this preconception preparation, which I think is more needed. And then afterwards, for postnatal care, that's another thing, the Ayurveda, and another conversation for another time, but that's really postpartum care is another one, because of course we know that I'm going off on a tangent here, but while we're talking about it, that of course birth is vata aggravating. So it's really important for the mother to soothe that vata dosha after birth.
Yeah, that's why if you see in Ayurveda in a broader term, there is a certain routine for the preconception, then during conception, during pregnancy also, and during labor also. We follow certain diet, we follow certain lifestyle modification during pregnancy, so that the birth will be ease process. We say that yes, it is like your one foot is in the death door in Ayurveda, and one foot is like here. Yeah. When the mother gives birth to a kid, because that everything, all the labor pains can bring a lot of vata, a lot of imbalance in the mother. Yes. And since the baby is still in the womb, experiencing all for the baby also, the doshas can get into the imbalanced state.
Right. So maybe if there was a reason this came up in the conversation today, because that is important. That's a vata imbalance too, that can lead again to vata aggravation and mental disturbances and ADHD. So, but that's a conversation I need to go into another time. Maybe we have to have you back on the show, Vaidya Meenakshi, and talk about that. That would be another great conversation to have. Well, I would love to. Okay, let's do that. We'll arrange that for another time. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation today. I think it's a conversation that is so good to have for people to understand, and not only for parents of children who have ADHD, but for the rest of us who come into contact, or our children are in school with children with ADHD, so that there can be more compassion for these children who are suffering, and that there can be more empathy, and you can explain to your child why their classmate may be a bit more hyperactive and so on. So thank you, Dr. Meenakshi, for this information today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Colette, for having me on this podcast today with the topic of ADHD.
Yeah,
and I completely agree with you. We need to be more passionate, more empathetic for those kids, and as well as the parents also.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot they are doing on day-to-day basis to keep the balanced in kids' lifestyle and their own lifestyle also.
Exactly.
So definitely we have to be more patient, more passionate, and more empathetic towards them.
Absolutely, totally agree. So, Vaidya Meenakshi, can you tell us where the listeners can find out more about you and your offerings, please?
So, I am in Dallas, Texas, and you can go and check on my website, www.ayurroots.com. It's Ayur, AYURROOTS, ayurroots.com, or you can give us a call at 214-801-1238. My office is in Plano, Texas, and you can find more about us on our website, on our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram. Great. And we would love to help you by giving the consultation of various health issues, and we offer Panchkarma also, which is a detoxification process. And we offer all the therapies in-house at our center.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. And for everybody out there, I will put all those links in the show notes. So just go on over to the show notes and we can get you over to ayurroots.com. Vaidya Meenakshi, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time today to talk to us, and we will definitely have you back on the show to continue our conversation about preconception, pregnancy, and postpartum. That's definitely a date for another time.
Thank you so much, Colleen, for having me on this podcast. I really appreciate and enjoy having a chat with you, and I'm looking forward to another episode.
Wonderful. Sounds great. Take good care of yourself, and we'll chat again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Vaidya Meenakshi. Such fantastic information there. And I'd love to hear your thoughts over on the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group. And of course, all the links for Vaidya Meenakshi are in the show notes. And that was ayurroots.com, which is her website. Now, I also wanted to explain that sometimes through the show, I called Vaidya Meenakshi, Vaidya meaning a person who has authentic knowledge. And essentially, it's for a practitioner of Ayurvedic medicine. And sometimes during the conversation, I slipped in and called her Dr. Meenakshi. She just wants me to clarify that she's not actually a Western doctor, but in fact, a practitioner of Ayurvedic medicine. So excuse my slip for the use of doctor there. Thank you for tuning in. If you're interested in doing online consultations or you want to take part in my daily habits for a holistic health course or do a digestive reset cleanse, please check out my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. And also you will find all the information there as well for my upcoming retreat that's happening October 11th to the 13th. 2019, right here in the village I live in the south of France. And it will be 3 days of education, healing and connection and lots of fun. So you can find all that on my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and I'll put the link in the show notes also. Thanks for tuning in. If you find this episode may be helpful for some of your friends or family members, please share it with them so we can spread this information and give lots of hope with Ayurvedic medicine. Take good care of yourself, be well, and ciao for now.